Oh,
Hey
cool.
guys, and welcome to another episode of the Barenaked Health Podcast. Online today, I have Joanne Muir. So, Joanne, first time on the show, why don't you just give a little bit of a background, just who you are, what you're doing, etc., and we can kind of go
Okay.
from there.
Yeah, definitely. So, Joanne Muir, as Nick said, I live in Florida. I live in St. Pete, Florida. So, we were just actually having a little pre-convo about how sunny and beautiful it is here right now. It is gorgeous. I live near the beaches. So, I get to be a little boater on the weekends. Life is good. But really, I've been in the Tampa Bay area for a long time now. Moved from the UK to the Tampa Bay area. And the Bay Area has kept me here for many reasons. I found some great places to study, some great people to study with, communities. I'm all about kind of making tribe and community. And, obviously how you and I met was through Jean-Pierre Barral's work. And so the home base for Jean-Pierre Barral, the Institute is in West Palm Beach in Florida. So I've just found that this has been a great little part of the world for me to be in many ways and to explore what makes me tick, what makes me happy, and how I can get back to the world. So, I do visceral manipulation work, I do body work, manual therapy. I really love teaching, so I went on the track to be a teacher for the Institute, and that just officially happened. Um,
And congratulations
I
again on that.
know,
That's
thanks.
great.
Like this is I haven't told that many people, so it's like hearing myself, and you were part of that journey, you
Well,
know?
and I don't think, like, even just to give people context for that, right?
Yeah,
So, I mean, I don't necessarily know what you had to go through, but I was in a 4 day class with you, right? So it's like,
yeah,
this is this is not a light 4 days, everybody. Like
yeah.
just to have that
No,
understanding. So like
no.
maybe let's even dive into that a little bit.
Yeah.
Like what has been your process maybe from or just like manual therapy in general? Like if you want to
Yeah.
start there, but then
Yeah.
also kind of like what it was like to go become a teacher recently for like an
Yeah.
institute like the Barral Institute. Like that's a big deal. Yeah.
It's a big deal. I know. As you said, like it must have been like my body took a breath. My body said yes. My little mind is like, yeah, not that bad. Just worked really hard. And my body was like, yes, Nick, yes. So I totally hear you. I when I was, we'll go way back, right? But when I was 23, I was in pre-med in a local, I thought I was going to be pre-med. And my aunt was such a good like second mom to me because at the time she was sort of seeing, you've just moved from the UK. You're at that kind of awkward time when you think you want to do that, but you don't really have the it to be, why don't you just do something for a minute? And she suggested I do massage school. And I was in massage school and we were learning myofascial work and we were learning, just all these different techniques, like a little sample platter of it because they want to give you a little bit of everything. And someone did what we call a cross hand release on me where my fascia, kind of was doing this release process. And I had been an exploratory kid. You're talking about bare naked, let it all out there. I had tried, LSD, I tried shrooms. I was very exploratory. It wasn't really like a to have a rage party. It was like a what is this world about? I was that kid, right? I was like the hippie in the 90s or whatever. And so I say that as a short blurb to say that then someone did this like manual release on me and I had a snapshot of stuff I would get when I had like eaten shrooms, and I was like, whoa, I just feel like I saw something or learned something or something just got imparted. I was like, this is intelligence, like this is not just back pain. So it piqued my interest. And before I was done with school, I was like, oh, I'm going to go take this class with Dr. Upledger. So the Upledger Institute, the kind of founders we know of craniosacral therapy. And someone did a parietal release on me, so they were working the sutures of my brain. Now we are talking with 5 grams of pressure. We are not talking, you know, get that suture open. And I was like 23 years old. I was like, my baggy, my hair mess, this. I don't know. I'm just going to learn something. And I went into the biggest emotional release, and I had no idea what it was about. And it was so powerful for me because for 3 days I felt like gravity had a different relationship on my body. And I was doing this, now what I would call unwinding, releasing, processing, whatever. And I was like, I have no idea what's happening, but this is so big. And so then I kept going with the training and I got into training in somato emotional release work, up ledger style. A lot of people have different ways that they do emotional release work, which is beautiful. And I was reliving my birth and I was coming home to my mom and I was like, hey, this and this and this happened. She was like, yep, that's exactly what happened. And we were like, whoa, so cool. And I was like, by the way, you should have pushed harder. And she's like, by the way, they wouldn't give me candy. And it's like so wild to have a mom too that you could just say that to. It's just like, I totally say thanks for having that mom. We could have that. And then 25 years old, I was assisting in a cranial class and I met someone who said they were going to a channeling class that weekend. And I said, yep, I'd like to. And I met my first shaman. So, like, since I was 23 years old, I was just like on the seeking path. What I love about it is I've always been on the seeking path with like whatever notes I got from someone, I wanted to give to others. It was like, how do I share this? How do I talk about this, do this more, share this, keep unraveling, keep doing? And I did find to kind of stay to the piece about body work to the Barral and not go down rabbit holes at the moment. I did find that bringing it all together, I was like, this is so fascinating. And then I hit what I would say, I don't know if I like the term glass ceiling, but I hit this place within me and within my professional training where these big 3 hours, sometimes more, um, pieces of emotional mm, trauma and where cranial work could go for people was good. And for me, there was something else. And I took a visceral class. Now, I come from a background of massage. I know you're a DPT, so you do not know that I mean, you probably know, we don't have the same level of anatomy. We don't have like a
Yeah,
PhD in anatomy, so to speak.
yeah,
So it was a bit whoa for me to be in the 4 days that you just referred to of VM1, and my anatomy brain wasn't quite up to par. So I remember coming away from the class thinking, yes, and BRB. Do you know what I mean? I was like, I think I need a little bit more. And then actually changed direction with college and different things. That's kind of a different piece. And I came back to the visceral work and I was more ready. And then that piece has been 10 years. So when you say, what does it take to teach for the Barral Institute? Someone asked me recently, and my mentor who you met was with me, Dee, and I said, oh, about a year. And she smiled in that wise way that mentors do. And she said, about 10 years. I said, oh my gosh, you're right. It was 10 years. She was so loving with it. So the tract itself, by the time I was ready, I really accelerated through it. But you can't accelerate through that path unless you've done the pre. Do you know what I mean? And so I've been assisting with the Institute for years, and Dee and other teachers have asked. And, so I think I was readying myself, you know,
sure.
and whatever that means, practice or self-worth or timing of life or settled enough to do it or whatever, right? All things line up. Um, and there is a YouTube channel that the Barral Institute has, and Jean-Pierre is being interviewed in it. And someone says to him, what does it take to be a Barral teacher? And he just laughs. Like that's his response. And then he says it's a lot. So it's a sweet laugh in the whole like, oh, we expect a lot. We want to create really, really good practitioners slash teachers. So, all the teachers have their own practice. So we're not really teaching from a place of this book says this and this, coronary ligament is here. We're teaching from a place of we use this, we
Your
are
hands have done it all already. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. And we know what it feels like to get that kind of release or that kind of release, or we know what it feels like to, if it's not happening for you, how to help you, the practitioner, or how to position that body. And I do think that, as you know, because you just said it, it's a dense 4 days, VM1. And our main goal is to get this work in people's hands. Because I think in a day and age where we can study things till the cows come home with our brains and our minds, we really are trying to get the work into people's hands and into their bodies. Like, how does it feel to receive this stuff? So, yeah, so I just graduated. I'm very exciting. I'm excited to be back in my practice a little more full time because I, need to take some time to study more and travel. And I'm excited to get back out there more as a bigger part of the Baral team. It's good stuff.
okay, so let's shift gears because you were saying even just your practice. All right, so
Yeah.
now as your practice ramps back up, tell everybody a little bit
Yeah.
more about that because it's more than
Yeah.
just the visceral work that we've been talking about.
It is
So yeah,
definitely.
please share.
What I love is one of the teachers said to me once, one of the teachers in the Baral Institute said, She was one of the ones that kind of said, I really, really think, whatever it is that we all see in each other, she was like, I really think you'd be great for this. She said, I'm going to tell you something. Assisting for the Barral Institute helped my hands. Teaching for them changed my hands. And that's what I wanted. I heard goosebumps saying it. You see? No, I'm just kidding. Trying to show my goosebumps on Zoom. Um, I wanted that. So as much as I want to be able to share the work, I was like, how do I do this work where I study it even more? And for me, I'm a Capricorn, I'm deadline centered. I needed a goal to make me study the way I studied this past year. Now I'm like hooked on study. Do you know what I mean? So
Oh
now
yeah. Oh
when
yeah.
geeking out, oh my gosh. So now I'm like, oh, there's something even more clarifying when you study the work. Dee and I are calling it the purity. I want to maintain the purity. So when people come in, I want to make sure I'm really respecting the work more, respecting all the legacy builders, like, Dr. John Upledger. So if I'm doing cranial work, I really want to stay pure to the cranial work. If I'm doing visceral techniques, I really want to stay pure to the visceral techniques. Can they be
And but
ingredients?
that's a one big thing. Like when I did SER2, I feel like
Yeah.
that's where Stan really hit it home. He's just like
Yes.
he wants it to just be
That's
like
right.
you're not doing anything else. Like you're doing this, right? Like this is what it is. Don't
Yep.
call it something else if
Yep.
you're or like if you're doing something else, don't call it this, right? Like
Love that.
they're each like their own thing. And he's, I mean, just such a passionate teacher himself too, right? But I would say, as far as like you're talking about here, more with
Yeah.
the Baral side, like that's where he's at on the Upledger side too. Like he wants it
He's
to
totally a
remain that.
purist.
Yes,
Absolutely. Like he keeps it, not dumbing it down, but he stays in his lane. I mean that as a
yeah,
positive. Do
yeah,
you know what I mean? It's like you
yeah,
can cruise if you know exactly where you're going to sit in. And then if you want to change lanes, change lanes.
yes.
Don't sort of try and be, because the body knows that,
It
right?
feels like it's being tugged in all the different directions. Then
That's a
yeah,
brilliant way to put it. Yeah. And if that practitioner is unsure, like, oh, this is an energy cyst, but it's also a ligament, but it's also you know,
pick
like
one domain, go
yeah,
there.
yeah, like that body knows that. But if I
Yeah,
want to say I'm going to clear the energy cyst or see if it wants to clear and then do the tissue underneath and then balance it with a this, then those steps are more clear for that body. That body can follow that. And I feel like we get way more out of the body.
sure.
And certainly more out of myself because I need be less scattered in every way. No, it brings a purity to the work. So I think now. I just want to bring it all together in a new way. I want to really refine every technique. And then I've done so much work in the past with pediatrics. I've done work with equine. I used to hold equine study groups for, craniosacral. I did concussion work for years. We did a concussion project through the Institute too that was really beautiful and worked with pro athletes for years. And so I think that these chapters were so beautiful and everything got put not on hold, but certainly backburnered slightly so I could dive into the teaching program. Um, and now I'm sort of sitting there like, I always like say Dorothy at the Scarecrow, like, oh, what now? It's like bring it all back. Have you ever heard that before enlightenment chop would carry water, after enlightenment chop would carry water? Like you're still chopping wood and carrying water, but it's like a whole new world up in here? Not enlightened. I do not mean that, but there's a new lens.
So what? How is that changing your practice? Like, what do you see different both for yourself and for those that you're working with?
Yeah. I think that, one of the things I did more than I had before, and this is going to sound so basic, right? But the basics is right? Is I just read his work. I just read it. His words, the translations, the story of the body, not just studying the anatomy by the pictures, the journey of it, what's really happening here. So now I have a different like dialogue with bodies. I have a different respect for the work. I have a different respect for myself, right? Because I did hard things. I done hard things here, and so you have this relationship with yourself after pushing like that where you have brought yourself to this moment. And we say that things come and go but the work remains, in the sense of it is a place to come home to this study. So now it's like when I come to my practice, I don't have to worry about guest lecturing next week, which is one thing. I say it joking, but I say it like that has been a thing for a minute now of like making sure you're getting that PowerPoint out, making sure you're making your notes, all that sort of thing. Now I get to bring everything that I cultivated on this tract, and that comes into my hands and into the practice. And now I'm really sort of saying to the universe, really open to help people more if I can, whether it's people suffering neurologically, emotionally, uh, infants coming in, whatever, just really ready to re-embrace the work in a new way. And so, you say with it, what is that? I don't know, we'll see. I literally just 3 weeks ago graduated. So it's kind of exciting. Might be a little bit more vacation this year. That might be fun. No, I know. And I think that teaching, I've always thought about this because I've been so deep into the indigenous and the apprentice, and that's been a big part of my lifestyle is apprenticing. That's a big part of the shamanic work is apprenticing. And so I think that there's always this piece about your last piece in an apprentice role is to be a teacher. And that's when you learn the most. So I have a feeling that, now being a teacher will be what teaches me even more. You just keep studying. So I'm looking forward to it.
And
Maybe
that's where I feel like I just learn more and more from my patients every day, right?
every
The
day.
more that I get to put my hands on people, like feel different bodies, the same body a day later, a week later, a month later, whatever it
Yeah.
is, right? It's like, oh, that's different. Oh, that's different.
And you
Uh,
had cranial and SER and then just added in the visceral. And how are you finding it is to add in the visceral? Like easy? I mean, I don't mean it's easy, but
it's,
like natural
I mean,
because
no,
we're
the visceral, like it's just based on my practice setting, the visceral is much easier to do. Uh, the craniosacral, like, how do I describe it? I pull in cranial sacral techniques on a daily basis, right?
yeah,
But I don't necessarily practice craniosacral, right? Like
yes,
that's how I would
yeah,
describe it, right?
yeah,
But the visceral work, I mean, yeah, I'd say I'm doing it with probably 50 to 75% of my patients at this point, and that's only within I don't know, 3 months of starting it where it's like, no, I'm
mm,
just doing it now. Um, and it's one of those too. It's like I'm already booking VM two and three for later this year. Like I'm already just looking in the textbook because I want to just add other techniques. So I've just started using them, and then it's going to be okay,
exactly.
practice them now, and then start refining them at class and go from there.
Yeah, exactly. That's the beauty I think about because when you had reached out and you said, I don't have your verbiage, but it was sort of like, awakened to, and you did have that. And I think when people feel, it's just a way, it's like a Tao of touching the organs as opposed to learning about the organs. Because I mean, of course you knew that you studied it. You're a physical therapist.
But well, we don't go into a whole lot of organ work. Like
Okay.
it's more superficial, right? But it was basically the first just after day one, it was like, oh, okay, like I'm doing this, right? Like
Yeah.
it wasn't even
Yeah.
there wasn't any oh shit, like I don't know about this or whatever. It's just
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, like I should have done this a decade ago, right?
Yeah.
Um, but
Or I
now
have
I'm
been
doing
doing
it.
this. Something in me knows this work.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's what we
Oh,
feel.
you want to talk about that kind of stuff? There is, for me, it happens more specifically with like certain psychedelics, like
Mm.
dropping into that space of just like, oh yeah, like I've done this 10,000 times, a million times already, right? And it's like, but that's why, so I was very intrigued by when you said earlier too, even just like you were on the table and you almost had that like mushroom experiments or something,
Yeah.
right? Too. It's like, I've never experienced that. Um, Either giving or receiving manual therapy. But I've talked to people that have, and it's like I find that fascinating because I've only been able to access that through like deep meditation or
Yeah.
just use of psychedelics, right? So
Yeah.
it's like I want to know what is that like. What's that next thing to be able to get to that point? Because I think the power of touch is just so incredible. And I mean, it can very much be like that psychedelic in and of itself.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I love that you say the power of touch too, because like a whole nother tangent, we were sitting recently over the holidays and someone said, it was a conversation about AI and job security. And I said, well, I'm really feeling and wondering and curious and maybe or certain or I don't know that I feel like my career will stay relevant because of right, the power of touch. And this person said, "Oh no, until they create a robot that can touch the way you touch or something." And I just said nothing because that's what I was saying on the inside. It was like, I don't
Until you can
know,
create
man.
a soul
I know
synthetically, like
exactly.
I don't get it, right? Like
Exactly. Or, soma is just, the ancient Greeks translated the word soma to know. Like there is a knowing in our cells, right? The God cell, everything is in there, right? So I feel like maybe even when I said I had a psychedelic experience, like that wasn't untrue as much as, Michael Pollan wrote that book, How to Change Your Mind. And one of the things I loved about it was, he basically studied psilocybin in that and not too much Aya or anything. But he said at the end of it, I interviewed everyone. And then at the end of every interview, I would say something like, hey, why didn't you just chalk this up to like, woo, pigs in space? That was a wild ride of nothingness? And everyone had a similar answer in the sense that they would say, no, 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 it's not like that. I felt like I was imparted great wisdom. I felt like I had memory of things I already knew. I felt like I was exposed to truth beyond the BS. I felt like this. I felt like this. And that same theme of imparting great knowledge or wisdom or remembering who we really are. So if I take that and translate that into the crosshand myofascial release I had in class, it was like an intelligence spoke to me. And it was the body and the tissue without me having to take anything externally. It came from internal. And then I was like, whoa, okay, Aldous Huxley, doors of perception, blah, blah. If you can waken them, you can have them awake all the time, anywhere, meditation, body work, whatever. But I think it takes practicing waking up that ability to see, as psychedelics can do for us. And then I think that people forget to take that practice into their daily life, that you don't just have to stop everything and go have a psychedelic experience to see, to have the moon talk to you. Like, just talk to the moon. Like it's like be 4 years old. Do you know what I mean? And go in the garden high five your fairies or something. You must practice it. And as you know, we get really locked down in the mental space, the physical space, and we don't have a lot of access to that. So I just think that I had more access to that fascia telling me something because I've been working so hard at opening up my right brain, you know. And so I had an easy translation of that. And then when I had my very first SER and I did 3.5 hours of birthing, it was so real and so vivid, and I was in contractions and I knew this and I knew that and I had access to this. I think it was easier for me to have that experience just because I had opened I'd opened myself up with a lot of psychedelic experience. I don't know that it would have been that easy to access that unless I'm just that sensitive. Um, so I do think the practice has been helpful for me, you know. What do you
no,
think
that's
about
an
that?
interesting
Yeah.
way to think about it, right?
Yeah.
Like how, but again, all it is just hypothesis. Like how would it be different if you did or did not
I can't
use it
know,
ever,
right?
right?
It's
Like
like
you'll never
another life.
know.
And I don't think that, to your point, I don't think people have to do it that way. I don't think the step-by-step protocol is make sure you've eaten this amount of shrooms so that you know what it's like to see something beyond 3D or tangible or physical reality so that you can see non-physical. I don't think that's the thing. I think part of my journey was to work with plants in a way that I found commune, that I found nature, that I found tribe. And then, almost like then, the next step was to realize that we almost don't need any of that because it's right here. Like if I was to write a thesis now, today, which might change next week, right? Because that's how it is. I would say to a lot of my people that think that they have to do Aya or shrooms or something to get that, I'd be like, no, you don't. You can do breath work, you can do sound, you can do body work. You just might need to exercise some patience because everybody wants the big shebang, right? Everybody wants to take that psychedelic and see all the answers, or everybody wants to come in and get body work and have that big experience, and it doesn't always happen like that. It's a path, right? It's a path. And somebody asked me once, do you think ayahuasca would be the answer for me? I'm struggling. And I would say, no, it's all the answer. It's all the answer. I'm sorry that you may not like that because it means you would want to go to a crystal bowl healing, go to a breath work, go sing kirtan, go on vacation, get a flu. I've had transcendental experiences from having the flu, right? Because there's a purification and because I had spiked fever for 2 days or whatever, so it's really interesting that I think after we've been opened to we are these amazing beings that can see, feel, perceive, know beyond, then everything can contribute to that, maybe, you know?
There's, I mean, I've studied a lot of Paramahansa Yogananda's work. So
Mm.
for me, just like listening to him, well, his writings, reading them, right? And I think just like so many more just other, I'm going to say specifically like Hindu masters like that, right? Where
Mm.
it's, again, they just talk like, again, it's just like, you sit and meditate and like it just comes to you. And, right, it could be, again, as simple as us talking right now. It could be going for a walk up a mountain, but it could also just be spending time with your family. Like it could be working in the garden. It could be, I mean, anything that you bring that focus and attention to.
Totally.
It's just you have the ability to create really whatever situation you want from that.
Totally. And I think that's why, I love that after enlightenment drop would carry water. It's like, I really think we all just want to live more fully. And if we need to kind of go off balance for a minute to access things that help us, disorganize to reorganize, and the reorganize is a little more aligned and a little more aligned and a little more embodied and a lot more feeling and a lot more present. That's amazing. Some people I feel like are just here, they're already like that. I wasn't already like that.
Well, no, I think all children are born like that. I just
Mhm.
think that depending on the society that they're raised in, it's taken out from them.
Yeah,
I think it's already there very much
yeah.
inherently. It's just what is around them all the time that either lets them maintain, cultivate, grow that, or
Yeah.
just suppress it and just say, nope, not here.
Did you have a childhood that sort of spoke to that or introduced that or
I like my parents never uh I would say like wouldn't have dismissed anything necessarily, right?
yeah,
Uh I I very much remember having like three, and I'm using quotes, right? Imaginary friends, right?
yeah,
Uh Looking back, like I don't know that I don't remember ever telling anybody about them. Uh I guarantee they were real, right? Like
yeah,
there's no doubt in my mind now that that was as real as you and I are talking right now, right?
yeah,
And so I no, I don't think I was ever. I don't think they ever would have had like poo-pooed any of that, just like shot it down kind of thing. But I don't know that I was that open to it. But it's just like I guess I've always been fairly open to things because obviously I don't think we would also be talking about this either
yeah, yeah,
without that. But it's like, yeah, at what point did it start to grow? Like, really, I don't know. Um,
yeah.
but I would say there had to have been some suppression of it along the line. Otherwise, uh, I don't want to say like I would be further ahead on my spiritual path, but that's about the best way I could describe it, right? Like there, I'm sure there was suppression along the way just because, yeah, I grew up in Pennsylvania, United States, right? It's like
Yeah.
it's still not like a remote area that I'm at where, yeah, for the most part, there is a lot of just, I would say, suppression of that just and so much more now because the volume of everything is amplified. I mean, a
Mm,
millionfold, right? So it's like
mm.
you probably would agree, right? Where it's like a lot of things are both suppressed more, but at the same time, there's also a lot more that's able to come out too. It's just which are you willing to be open to listen to?
Yeah. I love that as you were speaking though about, growing up in Pennsylvania, I think, oh, so, some of us just had the medicine of like nature. I use the term medicine because like everything is, right?
Yeah.
So, sometimes it's just like, oh, you had commune with, nature and the spirits and like you said, the non-physical, friends or whatever at that time. And what I love about what you were saying too is, um, there was no poo-pooing it. And sometimes I think that's one of the best things we could do for someone or a kid is just let them, right? Isn't that they're the new, I haven't read the book, but there's like a Mel Robbins book out there, a movement out there of let them, right?
Okay.
It's kind of like this idea of, let let people be people, let them do, we don't have to sort of like always be involved in, sort of codependently or manipulating everybody else to say, just let them, it's this sort of new piece. And I think it's really powerful. But I think that a lot can happen in the positive when we just let a kid be a kid, you know? And um, you know,
I
I,
will interject one thing on that.
yeah, yeah, you're an actual dad, so you
Well, no, but very specifically because I see the dangers of the internet, right?
Oh
So it's
gosh,
like,
yeah.
and I'm using the internet just broadly, and I think that's probably the easiest way to sum it up because it's so freaking attractive, right?
Mm,
Uh, when we talk at first, like to me, like the blue light all over the screens is a major
mhm,
problem. Like it is beyond a dopamine hit just right there, right? So it's like there's that, and then there's the constant just changing of everything. Everything, the shorts get shorter, the TikToks, the Snapchats, the this, the that, the everything like is faster, faster, shorter, shorter. Um, like games like Roblox, like they they don't even deal in like regular dollars. It's like quadrillion dollars, like septillion dollars. Like it's like unfathomable amounts of money. And it's like, oh, for a banana, right? And you're like, no,
mhm,
this is just like so there's so much to it to me that, and I'm speaking specifically to kids now, right? And not even like the dangers for kids necessarily. I'm
mhm.
leaving that aside. It's just meant to draw you in so hard that I agree to a let them to an extent. At the same time, you also have to let them within the proper confines, right?
I totally
Because there's
appreciate
also
that.
just things that are just too addictive, just flat out.
Totally appreciate you saying that because I had my little eye on you as a kid in nature with your imaginary friends. And to that, I was like, let them play, let them
But
talk to
I
their
grew up like,
I'm glad that you
right.
zoomed back out
Yeah.
to
I
say,
didn't get a
let
computer
them.
till I was 12, though. So that's the
Right,
other thing, right?
right, right, right.
So the difference is
Yeah, huge.
that, but it's
Yeah.
just, I would just say, like, it's the technology. Like, that's the one thing. It's just like, I don't think kids should be um, stopped from using the technology. Like, let them learn it. I'll agree to that. But then also, okay, let them realize that this needs to be taken away. You need to go outside sometimes. Like, that's just it.
That's so beautiful. My shamans, let me think how old my shaman son is like 30, not, he wasn't 10 at this age and this era, right?
Right.
So a couple sort of technology eras ago, right?
Right.
Video games still exist, sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
And she said to him once, she's sort of watching him, in the shamanic way that she does, and she's sort of watching him play video games, watching him play video games. And then she said to him once, let's do something. This week, play all you like, and next week, like, don't, or whatever. And just tell me how you feel. And he's a super intuitive kid, He's doing Aya like 15 or something. Do you know what I mean? And it was just cool. I love the story because he was like, yeah, I don't feel so great. It was just great. It was just like permission to be a part of your own awareness. Work with me here. You can tell when they're going to sort of say, like, no, I preferred the video game week because it was a total dopamine hit and I was high as a kite. Right? But it was this beautiful invitation to him just checking in with himself. I still use it, right? I still use like, oh, this week I was a little bit like a little less focused. And for example, I just finished this huge, year of focus and I felt a little lost and no one was telling me that I had to prepare for something next week. And I was on social more. There's nothing wrong with that, but I noticed how I felt. And so that's the nice thing about having feelings that you can just check in with yourself. And I was like, oh, it was a little more distracting. It's not that I don't want to be on there, but I want to use it differently. But I really miss studying. You can still study, you can still read. Like, talk about the self-talk. I had to parent myself and be like, you're allowed to still read a book, Joanne. It's okay. It's just like all the things that we have to do to be this human, right? But have enough self-awareness to just feel There's nothing wrong with that. If I need a day home TVing it because whatever, just because. And I remember saying that to one of our favorite yoginis in the area started a beautiful yoga studio here many years ago, and now she does an Exalted Warrior project, and she does yoga for trauma, for polytrauma vets and that sort of thing. And she was on my podcast once years ago, and we just said, yeah, yoga could be Netflixing. It's okay, yoga can be ice cream, yoga can be, and it doesn't have to look a certain way to, to your
Certainly.
point too. It's just time with family, spend time, garden, whatever. So I do think that we just need balance. And then one of the things you said about the suppression piece and then yet the rise up. And I it made me think of when I was in class recently sort of over the last 6 months, not just the last class I did. So your class and a class I just did. Um, and there are so many, this is kind of like my own little laboratory now, right? Obviously the laboratory is classroom and his body and his body work. But wow, there are so many good hands in these classes. And I've been doing the work a long time, and there weren't these hands in the classes. And Dee and I were talking about that. And I was like, what do you think it is? She's like, I know. And she said, we've hit the 100th monkey. And I was like, oh, I think we have. And there's this little book, The 100th Monkey, which is basically talking about the tipping point, right?
Okay.
Like, how many people do we need to awaken to hit a tipping point? And I'm sure that's a whole other, thing. But it is that idea that once you have enough, it can be heard and you are affecting butterfly effect, tipping point, all these types of things. The 100th monkey might say it in a slightly different way, in a slightly different story. And it's something I'm really chewing on. Maybe I'm even chewing on it and bringing up here to sort of be like, what do you think about, tipping points and consciousness changing and stuff? Because I know that I'm just using the laboratory of body work in a classroom, but we all have a laboratory. We're all going to see it in whatever language we speak in, you know? Um, And I'm just seeing these practitioners come in. I mean, even like yourself, there's just like you already had it. It's just like I haven't seen that.
So what just came to me, like, okay, uh, roughly when did Jean Pierre bring this like pretty mainstream?
Um, yeah, I think he came over to the States in the 80s.
I was gonna say the 80s, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, so I was born in the 80s,
Okay.
right? And so like roughly like a lot of the people at the classes where I that I was in at least were probably born 80s, 90s, like some earlier, some later, but that's probably the age, right? So it's like,
Yeah.
okay, their souls were watching, right? Like,
Yeah.
so we've all probably done this again, how many times in the past? And then all of a sudden we see like a great teacher starting to do something. Oh shit, I'm ready to jump into a body. Like, I want to
Right.
get like grow up, like be able to bring this back now.
Right.
Because maybe you recognize like, oh, he had something that I haven't learned in a past lifetime. And it's like those souls are kind of taking it in, watching and saying like, oh, I'm ready to learn from this guy. So maybe some of it's that, right? Like it's just all these people were just like waiting kind of until it was there to reincarnate on Earth to be able to bring that to the world. I don't
I
know.
have goosebumps. I have goosebumps. I do. I think there's something about the wave of souls that are coming in right now. Like I love that image of kind of lined up, ready to jump in. Because I do think that, and I loved just when you said, that you gave like that contrast of the suppression, but then I think of, shout out to the weeds that grow through the cracks, when you see this like concrete driveway, but there's this
No
one
matter
little
what, the
weed,
weeds will always grow. Like if you give them
this
a
one little
year, a
weed.
decade, 100 years,
Totally.
like the city is going to turn to rubble and it's going to be taken over by the plants, right?
That's right. Exactly. Exactly. Taken over by the plants, by the hands that know, whatever that even means, just the hands that are ready to communicate, whatever. And there's a transcendence. And, for the potent medicine that smaller percent, whatever, the weeds can bring, it seems to transcend the rest of it, you know? And for a while, probably a few years back, I felt like there was this trending. Granted, I'm not on social media that much right now. So I felt like there was a trending, use of the word authentic and authenticity and authentic self. And and then words, sort of they have a different feeling to them after they've
Which
been
is
used.
so weird to me because I'm like, what the hell else are you gonna be, right?
I know. I know. Something that you have to be. I must be my authentic self as opposed to yesterday when I was not, or something. I know. Very interesting. I know. Yesterday I was my unauthentic self intentionally or something. Yeah. No, I know, totally. Um, but it's interesting because that was an interesting era. And now in contrast, I just feel like I'm hearing so many people now speak to when something doesn't feel authentic to them and they don't know what word to use because authentic has been overused, I think. And I think what they're trying to say is, oh, that just didn't resonate with me. It just didn't feel real for me, you know? And I do appreciate that. I'm hearing more and more and more people express what their vibration, their frequency, their soul, their fingerprints need. And it doesn't have to make that bad, inauthentic, as much as it just wasn't, it's like the ugly duckling just trying to find their swans. It's just like, well, they weren't swans. So someone went to a local spiritual group and they were like, I don't know, it just didn't feel authentic to me. Totally. I'm like, or, you're just looking for something else. Like keep searching. And this is what I encourage people is just keep searching, and then back to even, cranial or something. It's like some people may not have your hands. And I want to encourage people, keep getting body work with different people though, because somebody might have the it factor for you, where your body
Oh,
responds to them
a
differently,
hundred percent on that,
you
right?
know?
But that still is the same thing with the frequency, right? It's like
Yeah.
if your frequencies are matching up, but there's somebody just down the block where the
Yeah.
frequencies are matching up like crazy, like yeah, it's gonna be a completely different ball game.
Yeah.
Uh, okay, what do you do in? Let me preface this with something you said even a little bit earlier, right? Of like almost the knowing, right? And the hands like so I still think obviously like we're very much all connected, right?
Yeah.
And I have gone so far as even I stopped using the word sympathy because I don't believe in sympathy anymore. I think it's only empathy. Like we can still
Right.
only feel because we've truly experienced it. Maybe
Nice.
not in this physical body, but we've experienced it through somebody else's body, consciousness, whatever, right? As just a collective consciousness. So it's like yes, I think that all of our hands are the same and or have the ability to be the same, right? As well as all of our bodies have the ability to be the receiver of those hands, whatever the too. But how do you really connect with that frequency? Like when there's somebody on the table that you're working with, how do you really focus on being able to connect to that?
That is a great question because I think I've done it different ways over the years, as we all do. Um, so to your point, I do think there's a nervous system or frequency or soul, D, all of the above connection that happens when we come face to face, with someone. And then there was a time that I was almost using, this probably isn't the right languaging or the way to say it, but just for the sake of sort of going this so that we can go to next or whatever,
Yeah.
I might have been using too many tools. Maybe that's what I'm trying to say. Um, because I was channeling for people and sometimes using, tuning forks and sound or whatever. Um, and then deciding if they needed to be on the table because as I was talking to them, the sound wasn't moving through their left kidney. So then I would jump them on the table and do some kidney work or something. So I think that there are so many ways that we can connect. And what I happen to be focusing on now, no coincidence, of course, just coming through the um, uh, protocol of the teacher training, is I'm really curious. And I think as I'm saying this, it's dropping in. People need touch right now. This is what I think my mission statement, that the sign on the door might be saying this that I haven't even put there, is we've come through a pandemic. There's a lot happening in the world. A lot of people are getting talk therapy. Now, listen, when I say a lot of people are coming to me that talk therapy isn't working for, I am not bashing talk therapy. There's just something else. There's a missing piece for them, right?
And there are other people that you're working with that need talk therapy, whatever it is, right? Like
Exactly.
it's important to understand like there are differences
Exactly.
in that, right?
Because it takes a village. More
Yeah,
than that, we are multi-systemed. They
yes,
have to be able to hear themselves and they have to be heard. And so I want that for them. Now I'm refining what my gift is so that I can do that even better. And so if they want to come in and talk the whole session, I'm referring them to really great talk therapists, you know? If they want to talk the whole session, I'm asking if they can do that on the table. So I
yeah.
can have my hands on their cranial system and see what the cranial rhythm is saying in response to what they're saying or something, you know? Um, but I really think now that I just want to connect through the rhythms of the tissue. I want to connect through the cranial rhythm. I want to feel what the organs are doing. I want to look at what the breath is doing. I want to look at what the translation is through the body. And even when I do sound work, I had put that on pause for a while. It's saturated. Many, many people are doing sound, and obviously I was training with the Institute. Um, I will watch the way the sound travels through the body and where it gets stuck or how it highlights a pain pattern or a lesion pattern or something. So I've always even done sound in a very somatic, embodied way. Put the sound on people. If the sound isn't moving through the body, do they need jostled and shook? Do they need a release there? So I always think it's been interesting to connect with people literally in the soma and touch them. And touch could also be off body. I'm not saying it has to be like in the physical. You can read the thermal planes and you can do other things. Um, but when we came back from that pandemic, being a touch practitioner after a pandemic was so interesting because people were just like craving physical connection. Even if they just came and sat in group, even if they just came to a sound circle, they had to be around people. They were so dysregulated. And so it's really interesting because we are still just post-pandemic. If you think about it, in many ways, people are still feeling. I'll have people sit in the chair and say, things just haven't really been the same since. And then you see them go in their archives. And, we had storms here and there were floods. And, so they're going to the, you know, whether it's elections and then natural disasters. And then, they're searching back in their database, right? And they land on pandemic. And they're like, it just hasn't been the same, you know?
It's going to be, that's a good point. It's such a crazy reference point for
Yeah,
so many things. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I do think the way I connect with people is I want to listen to their cranial rhythm. I want to arc. I want to see what's happening when I do some of our listening techniques. I want to hear what they're saying. And then that comes in also. My shaman used to do this process with us called verbal process. And I mean, it's pretty much what we do every day, all of us, but it was fun to do as an exercise where we would listen to people speak and we had to sort of guess, they had to say, I think the exercise was something like, it was probably something fun like two truths and a lie kind of vibe, right? But you had to listen to the vibration of their statements so that you could pick up on truth versus non-truth for them.
Mhm.
And so, I will do verbal process with people. If they're coming in and they're sitting down, you can feel when something is lands, and you can feel from across the room when their cranial rhythm shuts down, they go into a still point, that was significant for them. And then I want to corral them back to that because that was truth for them. And I want to move them away from the rambly words that are just like, possibly decluttering and getting this stuff out. And then I want to bring them back to tell me that piece again that you said XYZ so that they can feel in their bodies what alignment, what still point, what significant feels like. So I really appreciate even using body work to help people feel their own truth, because they're like, oh, yeah, that does feel different. Or the tears come, or the goosebumps happen. And I want to say that right there. Like, don't say anything else after that. Just say that and create this neural pathway to like, this is a truth statement for me. I think that our culture, Western culture in general, has to fill it up. We don't like silence. We like to say more. We need to fill it up. We just talk, 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 talk. And obviously it's different if we're exchanging and we're trying to sort of have this dance of conversation. But I think that bringing people back to their body is an important piece for our day and age. I think that we have incredible amount. My shaman said to us once in class, "What do you think illness is?" And I remember she asked two of these really crazy good practitioners, and their answers were so good. And then she asked me, and I remember being like a little kid and like, why do I have to be third? They already said all the good stuff, because like doesn't matter how old I get, I'm always a child, right? And then I was like, well, what would I say? And I was like, well, we abandon ourselves. We abandon our bodies all the time. And then they're like open domain for being hijacked or something. It's like a frequency thing. And so I do think that communicating with people through the systems, through touch, it doesn't even have to be, it's not like massage. Just hold their feet, hold their head, you know? People need to be cared for. The beautiful thing about the cranial system when you're doing like just a dural rock and glide, I mean, that's what we needed when we were infants, you know?
Same thing. Still feels just as comforting.
Gosh, right? It's like, oh, that's right. I get to be here just like this, you know? So I don't know. I think it's really important to touch. And I know that intention is incredibly important. And I know that people being touched in a way that is non-agendad, if possible. I suppose we have a bit of an agenda in the sense that we want to help or whatever. I mean, so really, 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 we're not doing it in a vacuum. Of course, there's intention, but intention, maybe not agenda. Maybe that's a sweet spot between intention to listen,
Yeah.
not agenda to fix might be nice. And it makes me think of when I did the craniosacral study groups for equine, is we would cross tie our horses, and then it would be a fun game to play. Like, okay, approach that horse neutral. And horses are so sensitive, like kids and babies and stuff, and us, but we don't respond the same way. And so if you had any type of, oh gosh, I'm gonna put my hands on its spine, I don't know, whatever, it would shift. The horse would shift, and have a response. But if you could really be neutral, centered, there would be less response from that animal as you approached it. And so the animal's response was a measure to your energy body, right? Like, could you stay centered? And so it was like the biggest mirror. We had this 1,500-pound Irish draft. And so when she responded to you, you could see it, right? Obviously. And so we used to kind of laugh and be like, oh my gosh, okay, let me recenter, let me recenter. It was such a cool practice to really check yourself. Am I centered? Do I have an agenda? Do I have some type of energy coming out from me that horse can feel? Or, we used to call it like stealthy. Can I be really stealth and kind of like approach this animal centered and not being felt, you know? And so it was always really interesting to me. Can I be centered and contained as I move about this cabin, you know? And I hope to come on a body with listening hands and not like, oh, I want to make sure I get their headaches taken care of. I want to make sure they've had digestive issues. I want to make sure zzz, you know,
I mean, well, so I told myself that probably three, four times today. Just from the perfect example of, right? And then it's like, nope, okay, where are my hands going, right? Like,
yeah.
it's still just a constant reminder um, to be able to do that. Uh, One thing I'm curious though on the approaching a horse, trying to be neutral, right? And again, approaching anything, right? So my mantra, if you will, is I always say is radiate love, and I'm always just doing that. Like that's always going through my head, my frequency, whatever you want to say, right? But at the same time, is that neutral, right? I guess is my
No,
question, right?
I know.
So it's like you still might be approaching that horse with um, love, positivity, whatever it is, but it's like, is that neutral? I guess is my
Right.
question.
It's such a great point. And maybe neutral isn't even the right word. We used to sort of call it because, the cranial rhythm kind of goes through the neutral space or,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. So we probably, being cranial people, that was probably our jargon. but it's a great point because I think all we're trying to do is maybe the image I'm getting is sort of like, at least for me, come back from agenda, whatever that means, come back from an agenda. And so if I have to turn myself onto listening instead of assuming or receiving instead of projecting or, whatever, all of it, like you said, it's a constant reminder. And so I do think that we get a cheat sheet as body workers because, you know,
How'd you know that?
I know now everybody knows. Now it's not a cheat sheet. The whole world's gonna know it. Um, is because we can put our hands on and tune into anything, right? Rhythms, fascial pools, motilities. And so it's almost like I'm jumping a bit here, but it's like a meditation. And I feel like you have a really strong meditation practice. So please tell me thoughts, feels on this. Um, I feel like there's still an idea in our culture that meditation must be stillness and no thought. Maybe I'm just being fun here, but like you must be very still and you must think nothing. And it's like, oh, I feel like that would be really, really hard to start with those demands on yourself.
I mean,
So,
to me, that's just like that is like a God consciousness meditation.
right,
Like that's like the highest level, like super consciousness that you could possibly imagine. Now,
right.
I'm not saying that's not meditation. Like that is a form of meditation and probably about the highest level of meditation you could get. But you're not climbing Everest like on your first day walking, right?
Love that. That's so perfect. And I appreciate you saying that. And so therefore, how do we encourage not, people to just get out and walk a block, right? To your point, where
But again, even just now, like just bring it back to this discussion. Like this
yeah,
can be a meditation
that's
because
right.
the only thing that like I'm taking some notes and I'm here. Like everything is
Yeah,
like laser,
yeah,
like so it's like there are two meditations coming together. Like your meditation, my meditation, but it's like we're it doesn't seem like there are a lot of distractions in this. So
yeah,
like that's a
yeah,
hyper focus on that meditation, even right there, even though, like you said, that dialogue is continuous.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And so if I can give my mind hmm, something to work with, I don't even love that term, but when I sit on the cushion, then I can have a meditation experience. If I'm in resistance, pain is always in the resistance type of thing of, oh gosh, this isn't meditation, I'm thinking something, or oh gosh, I just want to replace it with something, a mantra, a feeling of myself, an unwinding, the birds outside are beautiful, whatever. I just want to have a drishti of some kind for my mind,
Dristi?
a focal point.
Okay. Not
Yeah,
heard the term.
yeah, in yoga, when you're going to do a balancing posture, they say find a point to focus on. So you hopefully don't face plant when you're going into a balancing posture.
Okay.
Sort of like whether it's a spot on the floor or something on the
Yeah.
wall, right? And so I quite like the term drishti, I think. Um, and so when I put my hands on the body, if I'm not present, which of course never happened, I can't even say that with a straight face, then I get my cheat sheet of I get rhythms to listen to and feel. And then that takes me into the meditation of that person's body. And then I'm like, oh, I'm I maybe would have a really hard time clearing my mind of all the things that happened for me if it was a tough day or a tough week or whatever the case is, or didn't feel so great or didn't sleep so well or whatever. And then we have these rhythms in the body that can just take over and we get to just be there. And it's like a shortcut from all the other crazy out there into the symphony of that body. That's why I call it the cheat sheet, because it's like, oh, you could be a million miles away doing 1,000 things, and then you walk into that treatment room and it just happens. And of course, I know that the repetition of treating in the same room or on the same table, or, of course, we've got the download and the muscle memory, right? We've done this over and over. But I really, really do think that if you can use these techniques that we've learned as communications, Jean-Pierre doesn't really want to know anything about a person before he touches them, probably because he's Jean-Pierre, he gets to. No, just kidding. But it's also like, gosh, what does our mind do with that? Like, there's no way you can't have a seed planted from someone coming in and saying, just had hip replacement. It's like, crap, now I know that. Now
So
I
you're hyper focused on that hit, right?
Really, now I might be looking for that or finding some explanation of why I was drawn here, but it's about whatever. It's like, bzzz. So I try and etch a sketch that and just be in the listening. And so, to your point, to bring it back to the piece about the horses, is I think that we were playing with, can we tune in so much to them? Maybe like a melding to use like some of our cranial, SCR terminology. Can I tune in so much to them that as I'm approaching them, I'm blended more and melded more, and it's not my force coming into their field, it's more of a melding. And so maybe I'm not really neutral as much as I'm trying to shift gears to be more melded with them. What I thought was really interesting is we just have a lot of desire as practitioners to help. And I do not think that's a bad thing. Of course, it's a good thing. But sometimes I think that desire to help can override our ability to listen. And that is a nice practice for me. Like, yes, I want to help.
I'm saying it in my head because that one, like, that's a lot there. Yeah,
Yeah, the irony is I can help more if I listen more. I don't help more by doing more.
right.
And probably that's why the work found me and I found the work, is because I really had people pleasing syndrome nth degree with healer tendencies that would have made an overzealous practitioner if I hadn't found a body of work that helped me just be more in the not overachieving healer. Just like, I'm going to do as much as this body wants me to do. And I'm going to trust that this body wisdom knows exactly what to do with that. And I'm not going to try and fill it up with more. That's hard to do in this culture. That's hard to sell in this culture. Let's get on that topic of trying to give people less is more in a culture of more is better. Oh my gosh. Like, tell me, even as a therapist, it is an ongoing process to, I say sell this stuff, I'm being funny, right? But educate people, get people to really, really feel what we mean by less is more when this has been a culture of more is more, you know? Pushing, overachieving, no pain, no gain, right? Right, exactly.
Always, always.
Always, you know, which is interesting because in the shamanic traditions, they're not scared of pain. If they have to go to the shadow, which we do a lot in shamanic work, they're not scared of it. But it's not from this egoic, no pain, no gain. I made it through the shadow, therefore I'm a badass. It's humbling. It's certainly not egoic. It's ego breaking, right? It's like,
The ego dissolution is uh humbling is the closest way we can describe it, but it
right.
doesn't describe it in any way, right?
I feel like if we've really had ego dissolve of any kind, we have no words. It just is,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You just nod and rock slowly. I'm just kidding. You know? Yeah.
Okay, Joanne, so what is your background in shamanism then? Like, have you studied through like any specific was it just like with a specific teacher or what is like the lineage, anything like that?
Yeah, I know people ask me that, and it's like, no, not really, because it was sort of a not all those who wander are lost sort of start for me. And so the first shaman I found had trained with the Lakota tribe, and they had given her, the pipe and sort of said, like, yes, please, use our work, do our work, be our work. She had trained with a Russian shaman who was an MD, and she had such good seeing abilities that she would sit with him in with his patients and sort of say, this will make you and I laugh because we've just been in VM1 together, and say, I don't know, but that green squiggly thing over on the right side doesn't look good to me. And he would say, okay, that's the gallbladder. Please go take some anatomy classes, you know? And so she'd had this kind of thought she was schizophrenic at 25 years old, found shamans, thank God. So she was my first teacher. And then I found someone who, Native American, local in St. Pete. And then we went down to, the jungle and sat for a month. And then you find plant medicine. And then you find, other plants and other shamans and that sort of thing. And then you realize, oh gosh, that teacher when I was 15, he was a shaman. Do you know what I mean? You just start seeing people through a different lens and you see people as seers and you can see that people see and you can see that people for you are awakened to this, whatever that means for you. And so, someone said to me once, rightfully so, no one should call themselves a shaman. Shamans don't call themselves shamans. And like, totally, I get that. We're also now in like a Western culture where people need to sort of describe bodies of work or what they do or how they're practicing. And so,
You're not in a village of only 100 people where it's like, oh no shit, like that's the shaman right there. Like everyone
seriously,
knows
well,
it.
they're the ones sitting on the mound and I'm the one
Yeah,
washing
yeah,
the feet. So I guess that's who that is. Yeah,
right.
exactly. Totally. So both are true, exactly. And so how do we adapt to, bringing indigenous practices to a modern world? I mean, we just do. And if we need words around it, great. And if we just do it, we do. And I think that's where I am now is you just sort of see and be working in that way without having to call it anything. Um, and so, I love that I've journeyed people with sound or journeyed people with plants or been in plants, or I love that I've just sat in the jungle and the jungle's been the medicine. I love that working with plant medicine has taught me how to live this life as a ceremony. That's really what it taught me. It's just how to be in the world. And for a while I played in doing that as like specifically it looked like that. And then I was like, that's really great. But really it just taught me how to be, see, feel, know myself, or not be so scared to know myself more, and then know myself more, and then know myself more. And then some of these, things that we say, some of the words, some of the Instagram posts, as a shorthand for language that gets bounced around in the culture, things happen for you, not to you. Well, I just think the shamanic path helped me really believe that. Just live in a way where everything had a meaning. And so it wasn't it wasn't that it gave me more permission to overanalyze everything as much as when things happened, I was like, oh, I see why. Oh, I got the message there. Oh, I got the download there. Oh, and so just live in a way that all tabs were open at one time so that if there was a health condition or something with a parent or something, that you could just sort of be what we are. I believe we are all, to your point, which you said a minute ago, we all have this ability. Like we are superhuman. We have so many aspects of our brain and bodies that we have extrasensory, ability. And I think we all want to hear we all want to know our superhero power. And it doesn't mean it's easy. There were many times like Spider-Man was like, I am not wearing this suit and doing this job. F no. And I had many times where I was like, not wearing the suit, people. No, ma'am. And then my life didn't feel right. And then I would find another teacher or something like that. And I'd be like, oh, okay. I just need to refine and work with being empathic, as you were talking about, in a way that it wasn't too much or having gifts that maybe this world didn't understand. My friends called me weird for years. When you're 23 years old and you're the one in the jungle or doing cranial work or somatic work, and you're like, I just relived my birth for 3 hours on Saturday, they're like, you're weird, you know? I was like, well, I'm just gonna have to find other weird. That's how we're gonna have to do this? And then, as you know, there's a lot more weird out there than you thought? It's like, yes, there's tons of us. And then you stay, as you said, in a world where there was a readiness being cultivated, I think, for this. And I'm like, emotional, really emotional. That's funny. And I think that we now get to be a part of people awakening to this, and they're like, whoa, what the hell is this? And we're like, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. It's honestly super easy and super fun and a little weird and sometimes scary, but I swear to God, it's going to be okay. And so I just feel like we get to do that. And so shamanism for me just helped me not be scared of the dark, even though it's scary. Do you know what I mean? Like you can still have it be scary without running away from it and without it having to be a badge of
Wait,
honor.
something being scary and being scared of something very different, right?
Yes. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thanks for
No,
recalling that.
that's what I'm gathering from
Yeah,
that.
no,
Yeah.
I really appreciate that. That's exactly what I'm saying. But it also doesn't have to be you just got a notch on your belt for making it through another night of the dark or dark night of the soul. So I feel like we are trying to find in this culture a sweet spot between awakening to things that are shadowy and not having it be mm, accolades that you did your shadow work, you know? And so I have a little saying that I say to people, I probably shouldn't, and I'm going to say it on this too, is don't run drama on your trauma. And it's a hard thing to say to people because I get it. It's big. I get it. I've lived through a lot too, you know? But it's like just be with it as much as possible. Let that trauma help you find the people to help you find the practices you need. Be in dark night if it's where you need to be. Um, it's when we sort of get this, like, we haven't really done the process. We need everybody to see we've been traumatized. We need to see we've been triggered. We've been triggered. We need to post about it. We need to this. We need to this. We need to talk about trauma in a way that's like, I've been trauma. I've been traumatized. I've been traumatized. I've been traumatized. It's like, okay, your nervous system doesn't want to keep repeating that either. And I really, really believe if anything that my shamanic training gave me is just the ability to sit with people. That's it. And really see them, really see them when they don't see themselves. Because you know what? That's what shamans did for me. They saw me when I couldn't see myself. They probably wouldn't even know my name right now if I went back to them. You know? I had a shaman do this crazy extraction of me in the middle of the jungle on plant medicine. And the next day I went up like a little Western tourist and said, oh my gosh, thank you so much for helping me. And he looked at me like he didn't know me. And I was like, whoa, that's cool. I thought it was so cool that he was just in service. He was just doing his job. This is not about posting.
And again, he would have said it was grandmother doing the work anyway, right? It was
Yeah,
like it
totally.
wasn't him.
Totally.
Yeah.
I think he might have said, oh, it's yours to finish, or something to that effect, which I was
Yeah.
really grateful for too, because again, it's not one and done, that we are on a continuum and a path of healing and a path of letting go or a path of rediscovering or whatever it is for each person. And Dee said to me recently, she said in the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, everybody thinks it's to be loved, which I'm sure this is synonymous, but she said, I think it's actually to be seen.
She said that in class even.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
it's to be seen with love, right? Maybe it is synonymous in that way of, can we be seen for who we really, really deeply, deeply, deeply are? Um, so that maybe we may see ourselves. Because I know that a lot of people come in, there's a lot of broken out there. So if we can see ourselves for the absolute ultimate beauty that we are, wholeness that we are, greatness that we are, I feel like that's a great medicine for people. And I feel like that's what the ability to see has done for me, is just to be able to hold space for people when they're struggling, kicking or screaming. Um, it's just to be like, I know, you know. I never actually had children. But one year I had a little group of people that I used to work with message me and say, Happy Shamanic Day. It was Mother's Day. It was so good. It was so good. I saved, I think I screenshot it, but because you're just mothering or fathering, grandmother or grandfather, whatever, and you're just smiling it. We all suffer. We're all trying, we're all doing the best we can. And then I was grateful that I was given a tool to learn healing practices that I can channel that way of being through something, you know. Um, I don't think I would have been a good shaman of finance, but whatever. I'm sure my accountant would agree too. So I do think that it informed me in many ways of how to love this world. I think I would have struggled without it. I'm not opposed to religion, meditation. I have a yoga certification. I really appreciate kind of blending it all together. That's another thing I think I really appreciated about meeting shamans is they didn't seem to have a it has to be this way. Of course, to your point, there are lineages that will say these are the rituals that we practice. This is the way that we practice, you know? Um, and that's sort of, whole other beautiful conversations of like genetics and epigenetics and spiritual families and everything. Is beautiful to have that stuff come through. Um, and I just was really, really grateful that I had the opportunity to sit with different lineages and just appreciate that they all felt sacred, that it all felt sacred. It was just different. You know, when I go to a church, it feels beautiful. When I go to a yoga practice, it feels beautiful. When I sit in the jungle, it feels beautiful. When I sit in the mountains, it feels beautiful, Um, and I think I'm really blessed for that. When I think of Scotland, my homeland, it's beautiful. When I'm out on the boat, it feels beautiful. So, isn't that where, I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm presumptuous, but isn't that where we're all trying to get to is where every little bit we have feels great, if possible.
I don't know. I don't know that I can agree with that, right?
Yeah.
Because that's where I also feel something. I'm gonna use like samadhi as an example, right? It's like
Okay.
oneness with the universe, right?
Yeah,
It's like it doesn't mean it's all good, right?
that's true. That's a
Because
good
there's
point.
also the balance, right? Like even think of just like the Tao, right? It's like not too much, not too little, like the dark
Yeah.
and the light. Like it's balance almost. So
Yeah. And maybe that's what I meant even about doing the dark work and not being scared of it is,
no, that's a great
oh,
example of it.
such
Yes.
a great point because I remember dating someone years ago and there was this sort of like, oh gosh, bless, I do not at all fault him for saying this piece. Like, Joe, not everybody gets up wanting to better themselves every day. And I said, no, absolutely. You don't have to be on the quest. I'm offering to you how I live, but that's not a should you also. I said, but I also want to be clear that I don't get up every day looking for hurdles. I don't get up looking for complications. I just really welcome or am okay with when one shows up, whether it's the dark or something like that. And so if I practice going into the difficult, then I'm a little more free to work with it in an easier way if it shows up. Where to your point, if I practice only love and light, because I'm sort of not part of the love and light brigade in that way, then I would be really rocked if something difficult happened, you know? So it's like movement, isn't it? It's like you want to strengthen yourself in many ways so that you can just be strong in your body. And so I totally appreciate that. And maybe that's what I mean. It's like I want to feel connected in as many ways as possible so I know what connected feels like. And so I just wasn't called to sort of follow one path. Yeah. And some people do, and I think that's great. I think maybe I was just an ADD spiritual seeker.
like the amount of things that I want to study, not just like I mean just like right now, even, right? It's just
Yeah, like in this moment, run away and
this
study.
moment, like the amount of things I could just
Yeah,
list off that
yeah,
are over on my bookshelf, over
yeah,
in just like the classes that I want to take, whatever it is, right? It's so I guess where I'm going with that, right, is uh with him saying or like whoever said that to you, right? It's like, yeah, I agree. You don't have to want to better yourself, learn something new, whatever it is, every day. But I want to,
yeah.
right?
I love that.
It's like, no, you don't have to. I absolutely agree with that. It's just that's not how I'm made. Like
Totally.
I could not do that though, personally. But that's just knowing like, does that fit for that individual? So like
Right.
even just that somebody saying that, like, and knowing that about themselves, like know
Yeah.
thyself, like it's also still a huge thing.
Yeah. And I saw this guy speak once, and this woman raised her hand. It was like such a sweet, lovely moment. And she said, I'm here doing all these like spiritual, motivational spiritual quests, like fire walking and cleansing and, whatever her piece was at the time. And my husband's, sitting over there at home in the recliner kind of vibe, eats terrible, whatever her piece was. And the guy was so great. He said, how do you know what his last soul, his last life was? How do you know that he hasn't like had all these incarnations where he was la 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 la, and then came in this incarnation, he gets to sit in the recliner, eat pizza, and watch football. And that is his Zen. That is his. And I was like, yeah, like, absolutely. So that is why I think the return to self and the self-study and the self-work is fun because it's really just about, it really nurtures me and nobody around me has to. And if you find other people that are into it, trust me, we need each other, right? Because it's kind of fun to share notes, right? It's like, oh, did you do that one? No, I want to do that one, whatever, and connect. And I think we all appreciate, resonating with others. We don't want to just be on the journey by ourselves, totally. So I do love that. But I would never expect a partner or expect my family or expect anyone to also be on this path. It's just been what's been very fulfilling. And it's been a way to do the hard stuff fulfilling too. And I think that's really what's been good is there's been a lot of difficult. The world is difficult. I don't want that to ruin my experience here, but I do want it to be awake to it. And a lot of clients come in, I'm sure you have this like, I don't watch the news, I just don't want anything to do with it. But they're having like panic attacks. I'm giving like a very, very surface example here,
Yeah,
And then I'm like, oh, love, I'm really glad you don't read the news, but your body is a barometer. And when you think you've done nothing different, ate nothing different, slept nothing different, whatever, whatever the checklist is that they give you, and you don't read the news, so you think that you don't feel anything, your body is saying something else. And sometimes I think I have to read the news, and then at least I'm like, oh, I see body while you're freaking out. Okay, good. Then my brain is like, oh, just because of that. And then I can go, okay, that makes sense. And I can go about my day. And then if I'm reading the news and I'm like, oh, I'm just kind of looping over here, maybe I should put it down for a minute or something. So I want to be able to dance that dance of what I need and how I feel without it being formulaic.
sure.
And maybe that's where some of those indigenous beautiful teachers could help me because they seem to, in my young Western white girl way at the time, they seemed to live in a way of freedom. And it was freedom to pick and choose according to their own needs. And that just felt really liberating to me. You know, they had the ability to learn from the plants and learn from the oceans and learn from their body and learn, good berries, bad berries. It's like they still lived like that. And I was like, we should still live like that. That's cool. You know, Granted, now it's social media and totally different foods and but it's the same concept, isn't it? A little bit. And I think it's really interesting. I had a friend that was working with ayahuasca. She was working with her a lot. And ayahuasca said to her in one of the ceremonies, I'm not going to work with you anymore. Her rendition of the story was fun. That's why I'm telling it like this, because we were having a good giggle over it. She's like, yeah, Aya told me she's not going to work with me anymore because I'm not doing the work in between the ceremonies. I know. We all get our butts handed to us in this work. It's fun. And you have to have a good sense of humor about it. And you're like, yeah, she's right. I'm not ready. And you can't argue with Aya, man. It's not like your parent that you can blame for things and, project your stuff and displace it. And it's not your partner that you can be like,
That's wild though.
Yeah,
That's
it's fun.
wild.
It's really fun. So it kind of just makes everything more fun and it gives me a lens to look through and it gives me an excuse to be human. like we're just doing the best we can in a world that may not make a lot of sense at times. And can we trust that, I mean, you have to parent in a world like this. So I don't mean that in a dun dun dun, but it's got to be a big role to be able to. How old are your kids?
10, 8, and 5.
So it's a big role because they're coming into such awareness, right? Little humans, little adults, right? I mean, I know five is still, a little bit younger, but the 10-year-old, I'm sure, seeing.
Well, okay, I'm trying to think of like the example to use of the differences of it, right? Okay, here's a perfect example. He's in fourth grade now, right? But in kindergarten, he's like, well, why can't I have a phone? My other friends have phones, right? So like that's part of it, right? Of like kids that are 5 and 6 years old, like
Yeah,
already have their own cell phone,
that's crazy. That's mind blowing to me.
right? So it's, but I'm putting that, and then um, my 8 year old, he sits and meditates on the bus. Like he doesn't want people talking to him. He just wants to sit there, close his eyes, and like so. There's like just some of uh like that different ends of the spectrum, just like all I'll say available, I guess, to kids these
Mm.
days, right? Where it's like any technology that you could imagine is pretty much right at the tips of their fingers, pretty easily. But then they could also just drop right into that meditation and probably connect more with God than most people can after uh, having it been, I'll say, just like pushed out of them for decades, right? And then all of a sudden they're trying to connect. Like, I don't know how
Yeah.
to do this versus a something year
I
old like kid just can just do it.
That's so cool. What a beautiful thing to see. What a beautiful way to learn. You know, in every shamanic circle or ceremony I ever sat in, let's just say we'd sort of built this altar in the middle or the rituals of the rituals. And according to them, if a kid ran through the middle of that altar after it took hours to make, it was nothing but joy. It was exactly what it was meant to be because they're so connected to God. If an animal ran through that middle,
Yeah,
same thing.
yeah,
And so I always had such a beautiful respect for the way and the elders, the same thing, animals, children, elders, and so much respect for, I am way stereotyping, but um, for the souls and the connectedness that I think that Western culture has grown to not have as much respect for. Oh, they're just a kid. Or, oh, the elders don't know what they're talking about. Like I feel like the closer to God realms have been a little less highlighted or revered in our culture than in other cultures. And
sure.
so I love that highlight that you gave. They have the ability to switch the stations like it's nothing. They don't think that they can't just
Well, they
switch.
don't know they can.
Right,
Like,
right, right. That's a great point. And do you think, for example, the difference between, you know, your 10-year-old that does this and your 8-year-old does that, do you see also a difference in, I suppose, just their incarnate self, just nature and nurture, they say kind of grows us, do you see a difference in their tendencies, their souls, just their,
so yes,
yeah.
absolutely, right. Uh, I also don't think um, I don't think nurture has anything to do with anything,
Mm,
right? Because
interesting.
I think nature is still just nature is the nurture, if you will, right? It's like it's only nature because I still also believe that like going back to an hour ago, right? Like why are there so many more skilled hands? Because those souls were waiting to incarnate at that time to start to
Yeah,
learn under uh, John Uploader, John Pierre Barral, like these people, right? And it's the same concept of like somebody who picks to go into a violent, sexual, drug-induced like family, whatever it is, they
yeah.
know what they're picking to go into.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
if they're going to pick that upbringing, pick that nurture, it's really in their nature, right? Like it was already chosen. So
That's a brilliant way to
yeah,
bring that together. I do say to a lot of people, that we chose this, like go back to that moment, whether it's sort of like a little guided meditation to the inception point, or whether it's just a concept of reframing or, however to work with it in that moment. But I love the way you just took those two and put it into that concept that is all nature. I love that. We do know we need that environment. We need that peace. I was just on the
Going
table.
back to the couch potato watching football and eating the
That's
pizza,
right.
right? It's like
That's right.
that's what they
Like,
chose.
I'm gonna need a good recliner this time. That
Yeah.
was good. Yeah, totally. And maybe Chicago style pizza. So I'm gonna go to Chicago. Yeah, 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 yeah. Totally. Totally. And I love also that it gets revealed to us, no matter who, like as we go on the journey, I like to open up with that concept of like, show me more. Show me more about why I chose this. You know, it's just like a really nice mantra for me sometimes. Like we make jokes, like we chose this time, haha. We wanted to be here at this time in this crazy time, haha. But it's really, really fascinating to think that like, okay, this is what I need to learn this time. This is what I want to contribute this time. This is my soul contract. I'm going to need it to look just like this. And just recently on the table, I saw a whole new piece with my father. And I was like, oh, I hadn't seen that yet. And I love that it just keeps coming. Just keeps coming. Did you ever see that movie, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind?
I'm
It's
pretty sure I saw it, but it's been like 20 years and yeah,
because it was like 20 years or something ago. Exactly. I
yeah,
was young, so you were younger. Anyway, it's a Jim Carrey movie. It's all
right.
erasing the memories kind of vibe. And I remember in a little more magical setting, not like in a brainwashed negative way or whatever. And I remember watching it and be like, whoa, I think that's what I do for a living. A reframing of the past kind of thing. And I love that they say, you can't change your past, but I'm like, but if you have some insight that is new information that makes you see your past as a totally different way, that is changing the past. So like in this bodywork session, there's some stuff in my right leg, whatever, whatever. It was time to see it. My dad had left. I'd had stuff about that for a long time because the rest was difficult, blah, blah, whatever the story. And then in this image, he was backing away from my mom and I so that my mom and I could do the big piece of work that we needed to do. And my whole reframe, now I could have had a logical understanding of that, and that would have been great. But having that somatic aha is a game changer. And I was like, oh, he stepped away so that we could do that. Duh. It's like, of course he did. I believe this stuff. Why didn't I ever go there? But it's like it wasn't time for it to come up. It's where I am in the journey, blah, blah. You get it. You know what I mean? And so, anyway, back to your point about we chose this. So did he, so did she, so did you. Do you know what I mean? So did we all. And so I think that's a beautiful piece about, if I could more spiritualize just for fun of words and stuff, the movement of let them. It's like let them because we all chose this. Deepak Chopra would say, we all brought ourselves to this moment. And so whatever we want to do for each other or overdo or over this, it's like, no, we all brought ourselves to this moment. We can respect each other for that. And so I don't know what it's like to be a parent, but I would imagine it is a totally different application of that theory and concept when one parent would see their child really struggling. As I think it would be interesting to try and apply the belief that no, this is their journey, you know, and not want to sweep in and
Fix it.
save them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I would imagine it would be a really interesting spiritual practice. I'm saying that kind of funny, but I did have a beautiful mentor. He founded one of the colleges in St. Pete, and his one of his sons was just in that sort of constant struggle. And I said, is there anything in you that can find peace with this is his soul contract? And he was like, no, it just pains me and I have to help him every time. Fair enough, totally fair enough. But it is, it must be an interesting application of that theory. But I'm with you. I totally think that we choose this, we know what we're doing. We might forget.
No, that's an important that has to be part of that discussion. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm really grateful that there's teachers like you in the world doing this and putting that out there and raising children with that consciousness. It's time for, a lot more of that kind of embodied love in the world. And it resonated when I was in class with you. I was like, I just know that person is conscious being doing beautiful work. So you emanate it, you can feel it, right? It's like, you know,
So this is one thing that I guess I struggle with is like because people want to be able to feel it,
mm,
whatever it is, right?
whatever
Like we
it
could use
is,
it
right?
for all
Yeah,
these different things, right? It's like
taking it.
I and I've still ne I've always just been like, well, it's not like okay, no, here's where I can actually make this a easier conversation, right? I have students sometimes one, two a year, sometimes three, four a year. It just depends. Like they'll come on rotation with me for a couple months at a time, right? And I'm finding it a whole lot harder to do. And I think it's just because the more and more I practice, just the further separated I am from that. I'm like, I can't catch you up to 16 years of practice at this point
Oh,
in even if it's a 16-week rotation. Like it's if they're there to learn visceral manipulation, I can work on that. If they're just there to learn specifically, let's just say strength and conditioning, I can do that. Like, but to teach them all of that, to teach them the documentation, then to teach them like to just put their hands on somebody and just feel it, right? It's such a it's staggering. Like it's hard to bring all of that together. So I say that I think because for young clinicians, like to understand anybody that's like working with people, and this doesn't even have to be anybody that's using their hands. It could be, I'll just say healthcare practitioners in general, like take your time. Like it's going to be okay. Like you don't have to be able to feel all of that all at once. Like it's going to come through practice. And maybe you can turn it on and it happens tomorrow, right? Like that's also possible for some people. And some people it's going to take you another 20 years to be able to feel that. But yeah, I almost wish that there was a way that I understood to teach that, whatever that is, like that feeling. I think some of what we're talking, just like feeling that, just like you said, like for me, it's like radiating love, like to know what love feels like, right? But
yeah.
whatever is coming off of that person, to be able to feel what that is, like I don't know how to tell somebody to do that.
Yeah. My mentor who founded that college, I met him when he was 80 and we were 50 years apart in age and we were so close. It was one of those interesting things that my friends were like, "You're hanging out with who on a Friday night?" I was 30 and they were like, "What?" It's like, just never mind, you know. And then someone said to me once, "Oh, do you wish he was 40 so you could be together?" Or said something. I said, "No, I wish I was 80 because it's everything he's seen in his life that has made him this." I bring him up and I give him this like big grandiose intro because I watched the way he taught, and it was probably very different than the way he taught at 40. And he had this twinkle in his eye and he would say something, and it's almost like, I swear, it's almost like he would watch it go across a classroom, land for that person somewhere in their psyche, and he would smile at how it was landing for them. They wouldn't get it in that moment, and he didn't care.
Yeah,
He was like, mm-hmm. And then sometimes, and then like when he passed, I can't tell you, it was standing room only to get to come to this guy's funeral. Like he had touched so many people in a way without ever having to make sure that he did, make sure that it landed, na 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 na, all the stuff I was working with at the time and still am, but hopefully getting better. Anyway, it was so interesting because he just was a certain way in the world, and so many people were affected by it. And I guess that's sort of coming back to some of the guru type, concepts and that sort of thing of like, they weren't sort of saying, Guru, you must do everything I do. They were just emanating an energy that people wanted to be around. And whether we call it a download or a kinshaw, like sudden insight when you're around something. And if you sit with them, you know what that feels like. When you leave them, you don't. So of course you want to sit with them again, whatever,
More and more, longer and
You
longer
know
every time.
what
Yeah.
I mean? Follow them around the world, right? But maybe what we're trying to do in this generation of that, right? This iteration of that is say, you too, that's a neural pathway. So go away, forget it, whatever you need to do, and find it again. Go find it again, you know? And I think that, you have that energy circling through you and being it. I'm sure you're going to go through many chapters of how you use it or channel it or work with it or whatever. Um, I do think we get to a place where we just know that they will grow into it, but we were a part of their journey. And that's maybe not all we can do, like wah wah, but but that's important, how many lives you teach, because so many people, I'm sure with yourself, have cultivated who we are today, and so many more will. And it's been from teachers that have been doing this for years and written books or done whatever. And it's from the 2-year-old that was on my table the other day. You know, this little boy came in once, autistic, and his mom, and he said to me, he's like, yeah. And then I cried, and she said, oh my gosh, honey, you cried today? And he's like, yeah, mommy, I can cry and not have anything to cry about. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I love this 4-year-old child right now. Do you know? Like, it's like I
That's something to meditate on right there.
I
Holy
didn't even
cow.
have the verbiage. I was just
Yeah.
mind blown because I wouldn't have been able to say that to her and have it be that message, even though I totally agree with that. We can just cry. We just need to get something out. It's like having a long exhale or sweating when you run or whatever. It was just, but it was like the freaking channel that kid was in that moment. And that was years ago. And it's still a part of my somatic makeup now, So I don't know. I think you do what you do and you have a knowing that it will happen for them and they will cultivate it. And some people will get it now and cultivate it, and that journey might be long. And some people will think they're not getting it now, but then when they do, it like comes together in a different way. Do you know what I mean? Like all paths lead to Rome. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I just love that you're out there doing it and passionate about it and talking about it. And I love that you have students that follow you around and learn your way.
Well, it's fun. Like, I, I do enjoy taking on students just because yeah, I think actually what I've realized now is like how much I despised school, right? So
Mm,
it's like, oh, all right, yeah, they'll teach you what you need to do to pass the boards. I want to teach you real life, right? I mean, that's the big thing.
yeah,
Just
the
like
work, right?
showing them, yeah, like and being
Yeah,
able to just pass on any and all of that, right? It's like just trying to condense it down so that they can hit the ground running when they're ready to just start practicing
yeah,
over the next couple of years. Then, yeah,
yeah. I'm sure a lot is changing in your field. I have a really good friend who does the visceral work, and she's a DPT. And she's like, and this is just from her. I'm not pretending to know your field in this way, but she said, she's seeing so much of um, practitioners migrating towards using tools, lasers and certain things that, and she's like, don't get me wrong, it's great, but I really miss having hands on, and what that can do. And so I have another friend that's in PT, and they were doing some fun research, clinical trials at a local hospital. I have a client that came through cancer and worked with me and would love to talk about going to Moffitt and something. And so I do think that it's an exciting time for our field. People are talking about motility for coming through chemo and radiation. And, it is for us to touch the students who are going to touch others, right? That's the butterfly effect, right? Right
yeah,
there.
big time.
And and talk about the importance of, what some of this work can do for feels it because probably like yourself, I mean, I would never fight someone on whether they felt they had to do chemo. It's not my job to, do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
But I do want to say, how can I help you? You know?
whatever that in whatever capacity. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so I think that if we can pass that on and we can give, like you said, they're going to get taught how to pass the boards and they're going to get taught how things function. But if you can pass on the work, then that's the golden, you know, and then they can actually probably be like, wow, I really did learn something in school. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not trying to negate all the other stuff, but it's interesting to go through something that is a touch modality and have to have so much cerebral study, you know?
And I think there just goes back to what you said before, right? Of like I'm not really worried about AI. I'm really
I
not.
know. Oh my gosh. I love that you bring it back there. I know. Because don't get me wrong, there are times that you want to organize material or do this, or I was making a PowerPoint recently and I was like, I want a pretty image of a liver to start my liver lecture. Not that the liver's not pretty. Sorry, liver. And so I was just playing and I put into Chat GPT, make an artistic image of the liver. And it did. And I was like, that's cool. So, I don't want to be in total resistance to the world as it is. But I do want to stay, I like the purity of the work. I do. I like having something that can be my chop wood carry water. Everybody can have their own chop wood carry water. It's just nice to have rituals. And that's probably one thing I really loved about, we call it shamanism, but whatever, sitting with some indigenous people. I love ritual. I think humans love ritual. I think we love ceremony. I think we love sacred, and I think we all do. I just don't know that we call it that, you
Just
know?
however you want to describe it, right? It's all the
Really?
same, right? But wow, yeah, that's exactly it. Like you don't
Yeah.
no, nobody's like, well, that sucks. Like I don't want to do that. No, no, everybody kind of has their it may be different. Like everybody might have different ones, but everybody
Yes.
still appreciates like, oh, that's not my thing, but I get what you're doing. Like, yeah, that's
Yes.
cool, right?
And we label it sometimes. We had a really good friend that was like, through his house, beautiful house, Coconut Grove, Miami, loved glass artwork. Like that was kind of his thing. And would, if he'd come in the house, he'd adjust things a little bit and the way he would do his bed and his pillows. And, we were all close. We were fun. And my friends would call him OCD. And I was like, no, 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 watch him. Like really watch him. That's ritual. He is in absolute zen when he is cleaning his house. His heart is like wide open and he is in love with the details and the process. And so where someone would say, "Oh my gosh, that's OCD to make sure your artwork is," no, it's not, it was ritual for him.
For sure.
Yeah, totally. So try and stay away from labels. And that's my goal is to try and stay away from labeling people and just seeing them, you know, if possible.
Well, Joanne, if people just want to see you, if they want to find out more about your work, I think
Yeah.
because otherwise I'm gonna keep asking
I
questions.
know,
We're
I
gonna
know.
talk
We're
all night,
just
I think,
going
right?
down the rabbit hole and you have
Yeah.
kids. Yeah.
Uh, please share. Where can people find more
Yeah,
about you? Anything
I
like that, please.
don't have my radio station anymore. I was just kind of like really diving into studying, but I probably will do more of my own sort of vlogs as well as blogs. So my website is just my name, joannemuir.com. I am based in Tampa and St. Pete, Florida, but I teach now all over. So next year, if you go to the Barral site, I know I have to say that and like, whoa, I teach all over. So the Barral Institute website has VM1 curriculums listed, and so I teach about 6 classes next year. And then locally in the area, I still do sound and just breath and that sort of thing. So if you're in Tampa, Florida, that's great. And if you want to come travel and learn some visceral work, and there will be some fun things now that I have the time to spend on my website. Just some fun things, just some like self-care. I know you teach people how to move too, but I'm really excited to teach people how to like, touch their own organs, know what they can do for liver, know what they can do for kidneys.
So that's just one quick thing I want to add. Like,
Yeah,
even just like in class, there, it's like
yeah,
I'm just sitting there, like it's super easy to like
yeah,
once you kind of just like get the idea of it. Like there's a good chance you're not going to screw things up. So it's like if you feel like you need it and you're like, oh, that feels good to do that, it's probably a
Right.
good thing.
I'm excited to take the yoga teacher training and do some movement for kidneys, liver, whatever, and do a little more fusion of that and kind of put that up on the site for everyone to do their own little, like, oh yeah, to your point, I can lift my liver. It
Yeah,
does feel good. I can hang out like this and have an unwind and notice if I felt taller or notice if I felt more energy that day or something. So I'm looking forward to that. That'll be this year, you know? Yeah.
excellent.
Yeah.
Well,
Thank you for your time,
Joanne, Joanne, thank you
all
so
your
much. I appreciate everything that you just had to share here for everybody.
yeah.
I hope they check out all of the new vlogs and blogs that come out. And
Yeah.
again, if anybody's interested, like, hey, go learn the work, right? Go learn the work.
Learn the work, use the work. In Jean Pierre's word, we must do the work. If we don't, who will, he says. So there
There you
we
go.
go. Go forth and do that VM work. So thank you so much, Nick. Yeah,
Excellent. Thank you, Joanne.
talk soon.